The year that I lived in Portland, Oregon, my favorite place to go for renewal was the Columbia River Gorge. Whenever the intensity of my ministerial internship became too much to bear, whenever my spirit was exhausted, I jumped in my rusty Toyota and drove 30 minutes to one of the most beautiful places on earth. Waterfall after waterfall after waterfall. I'd park the car, hike a short distance, and sit on a rock, watching the water cascade down from a high cliff, land in a pool, swirl into eddies, and flow down a stream. The gentle touch of mist on my skin was refreshing. The feel of the solid rock below my body gave me stability. The sight of the moving water reminded me that this too shall pass. But it was the sound of the waterfall that truly renewed my soul. I could listen to that sound for hours, although it usually only took 1 hour to get renewed. Don't say there is no water to solace the dryness at our hearts. I have seen the fountain springing out of the rock wall, and you drinking there. And I too, before your eyes, found footholds and climbed to drink the cool water. So wrote poet Denise Levertov. Why renew? Why do we seek renewal? To keep going, because we get thirsty and dry. To keep going, because we get exhausted. To keep going, because humans are subject to turmoil and trauma. We seek renewal because we are pulled in many different directions and have trouble finding our way back to center. We seek renewal because we can become divided from self and others. We seek renewal when we've lost a sense of purpose or mission. We seek renewal because it is the way of life. The cells in our bodies renew continually. We sleep, we wake renewed, we hope, and we keep going. If we don't receive that natural renewal of sleep and rest, it is hard to keep going. The dictionary says the word renew is a verb with an object. We renew something. To renew means to resume an activity after an interruption, such as renewing peace talks. Renew can also mean to reestablish a relationship, such as renewing a friendship that has lain fallow. The dictionary says renew means, and I like this quote, to give fresh life or strength to revive. Like my pilgrimage to the waterfall. It also says renew means to extend for a further period the validity of. For example, we renew our driver's license to keep driving, renew a lease to keep an apartment, renew a library book to keep reading it. Some couples renew their marriage vows due to a disruption or simply a long season of togetherness. When do we know it's time to renew? Well, you will have your own signals. For me, I know it's time to renew when I'm taking someone or something for granted. When I'm finding it hard to concentrate. When I'm exhausted in body or spirit. When I've lost the juice, or when I'm divided in my own soul. when too many commitments are pulling me in too many directions at once, or simply when I'm too busy. In Wayne Muller's 1999 book, Sabbath, he wrote, "As the founder of a public charity, I visit the large offices of wealthy donors, the crowded rooms of social service agencies, and the small houses of the poorest families. Remarkably, within this mosaic, there is a universal refrain. The refrain is, I am so busy. It does not seem to matter if the people I speak with are doctors or daycare workers, shopkeepers or social workers, parents or teachers, nurses or lawyers, students or therapists, community activists or cooks. Whether they are Hispanic or Native American, Caucasian or Black, the more their lives speed up, the more they feel hurt, frightened, and isolated. Despite their good hearts and equally good intentions, their work in the world rarely feels light, pleasant, or healing. Instead, as it all piles endlessly upon itself, the whole experience of being alive begins to melt into one enormous obligation. It becomes the standard greeting everywhere. I am so busy. We say this to one another with no small degree of pride, as if our exhaustion were a trophy, our ability to withstand stress a mark of real character. Which it may be, I just gotta say. However, Muller continues, the busier we are, the more important we seem to ourselves and perhaps to others. Our lack of rest and reflection is not just a personal affliction. It colors the way we build and sustain community. It dictates the way we respond to suffering. And it shapes the ways that we seek peace and healing in the world. As Brother David Steindl-Rast reminds us, the Chinese pictograph for busy is composed of two characters, heart and killing. Why renew, my friends? So we do not kill our hearts. Last Sunday, I arrived home in the early afternoon with a strange sensation in my body. No, I was not having a heart attack. Quite the opposite, in fact. I noticed I had energy in my body. What? This is not typical for me on a Sunday afternoon, being a rather introverted minister who usually does work on Sundays. My first thought was, oh dear, I did not work hard enough today. My second thought was, no, Dina, it's okay to have energy for your personal life. Can I hear an amen? I must admit, I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you that story because amongst my colleagues and friends, I am known as a self-care goddess or a goddess of self-care. But yes, even I succumb to the pressures of the too busy life. May Sarton wrote in Journal of a Solitude, I always forget how important the empty days are, how important it may be sometimes not to expect to produce anything, even a few lines in a journal. A day when one has not pushed oneself to the limit seems a damaging day, a sinful day. But not so. The most valuable thing one can do for the psyche, occasionally, is to let it rest. Let it wander, live in the changing light of a room. Summer seems a great time to allow ourselves space to wander, rest, play, live in the changing light, be present to what is. Are there habits or practices that you have that help you do this? Carve out space, breath, time to contemplate perhaps a turning point, a fresh start. Practices that renew your body or spirit. One of my practices is gardening, as many of you know, especially those to whom I give zucchini. But in the spring, I approach gardening like project management. Management for production, for produce, with goals and objectives driven by the weather. I have got to get it done. Then in early summer, I realized I do not have to push the garden. I could approach the practice of gardening as relational, greeting each plant as my friend because they are, appreciating their beauty and growth as the days go by. Gardening could be less work and more savoring, like yesterday when I ate the very first sugar snap pea before breakfast. Tricia Hersey, author of Rest is Resistance and founder of the NAP Ministry, wrote, "There is deep power in taking a break, honoring your body, and actively participating in your deprogramming from grind culture. We have been brainwashed to be violent towards our own bodies by pushing it to exhaustion. Rest is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. Both of these toxic systems refuse to see the inherent divinity of human beings and have used human bodies as a tool for production, evil, and violence for centuries. Grind culture has made us into human machines, willing and ready to donate our lives to a system that thrives by placing profit over people." I wonder if we could cultivate our community here at First Church as a place where we talk about grind culture and encourage each other to notice the practice of overwork and how that is active in our lives on any given day. I'm talking about overwork in jobs and volunteer commitments. You know who I'm making eye contact with right now. But I'm not saying we practice this in a shaming way or a judgmental way. We could just support each other in noticing it and encouraging each other to practices of renewal. An online slang dictionary says the term grind culture refers to a work environment that encourages nonstop work and the belief that individuals must work hard and be productive in order to prove their value. It's similar to hustle culture and is derived from the term grinding, which describes the long hours that many workers dedicate to their jobs. Grind culture can manifest in different ways depending on the job. It might involve promotions based on the amount of time spent in the office, the availability during off hours, and being perceived as a team player by taking on the undesirable tasks or doing work that others take credit for. Well, this does not sound spiritually grounding to me. It does not sound sustaining or sustainable. This does not sound like a foundation for a faith community's culture, does it? This sounds like Don's stress indicator coming up black every time. You know, the word religion means religament. A faith community is a place where we can pull ourselves back together again, where we can name the separations, both personal and systemic, and practice healing that connective tissue. A faith community is a place where we pull together to keep going, to keep moving forward. And it takes time and practice to do that. Writer, historian, and advocate Rebecca Solnit published an article in January 2024 called "Slow Change Can Be Radical Change." She wrote, "People love stories of turning points, wake-up calls, sudden conversions, breakthroughs, the stuff about changes that happens in a flash. Movies love them as love at first sight. Dramatic speeches that change everything, trouble that can be terminated by eliminating one bad guy, and other easy fixes and definitive victories. Old school radicals love them as the kind of revolution they imagine will change everything suddenly, even though a change of regime isn't a change of culture and consciousness. Maybe religion loves them too, as conversion, revelation, sudden awakening. Saul falls off his horse with the strength of his revelation and gets up as St. Paul. The Buddha gets enlightened in one intense session under the bo tree. Muhammad gets a visit from the angel Gabriel. But at least with the latter two, the story has to include the long journey of intention and exploration leading to that sudden event." She writes, "I love dramatic stories too, but I think they tend to mislead us about how change happens. We need stories in which getting where you're going individually and communally mostly happens step by step, with maybe some backsliding, muddle, and stalling, not via one giant leap. Anyone who has gotten over a heartbreak or bereavement knows there aren't 5 stages of grief you pass through like they were 5 whistle-stop towns on the train line. You are more this way one day and more that way the other day, looping and regressing and maybe building reconciliation or acceptance like a log cabin while living in sorrow, rather than sliding into it like you were stealing third base. You want tomorrow to be different than today, and it may seem the same or worse. But next year will be different than this year, because those tiny increments add up. The tree today looks a lot like the tree yesterday, and so does the baby. A lot of change is undramatic growth, transformation or decay, or rather its time scale means the drama might not be perceptible to the impatient. And we are impatient creatures, impatient for the future to arrive and prone to forgetting the past in our urgency to have it all now, and sometimes too impatient to learn the stories of how what is best in our era was made by long, slow campaigns of change. Describing the slowness of change is often confused with acceptance of the status quo. But it's really the opposite. An argument that the status quo must be changed, and it will take steadfast commitment to see the job through. So I ask you, what is the job of our faith community? I would venture to say the purpose of our community is to continually renew faith in life, grounded in the practice of liberating love. In the Soul Matters packet this month, Scott Taylor asked, what if you saw your daily living and loving as an opportunity or even a calling to renew others' faith in humanity, to renew others' faith in humanity. Now, I just want to make a note that renewal could be misconstrued as a theological word connoting the necessity to be born again, because it does point toward being made new. That phrase, made new or born again, can be a trigger to some folks because of past religious trauma, or because, although it refers to a genuine renewal of faith, it can also refer to a renewal of hatred. For example, during the years of Anita Bryant's campaign of hatred toward gay people, lesbian comedian Robin Tyler said, "I don't mind people who are born again. I just don't want them coming back as themselves." Now, I share her joke truly not to diss another's genuine spirituality. I share it, I guess, to diss religion when religion is used as a bludgeon of hate. For we have to be careful how we use our faith and what we are renewing it toward. Because renew is a verb that has an object. So what are we renewing our faith toward? And what happens when we don't renew? We wear out, we stall out, we behave against our values, cause harm to self and others, and we don't find the healing, joy, and purpose that is our birthright. So why renew? Because when we fill up, we have more to give in the service of our purpose. Like the endless waterfall in Chris Williamson's song, filling up and spilling over is the way of life. You may recall, she sings, when you open up your life to the living, all things come spilling in on you, and you're flowing like a river, the changer and the changed. And you've got to spill some over all. So may we renew in these coming weeks of summer. May we fill up with living. May our cups runneth over. May we reconnect those ligaments of body, mind, and spirit, both in solitude and in community. May we find our way back to the center. May we have life and life abundant. May we renew our faith in life. May it be so.